As we continue to work our way through the mighty, daunting SDI glossary, here we are, page, 4 years in, we're on page 12. Edge seam is the next definition. Edge seam. So what's the connection between the face sheet and what's on the edge of the door? That's the edge seam. I've not seen everybody's door in the world, but the definition or the description or the background that I'll give you is probably as applicable today as it was 30 years ago when I first really got into hollow metal. I started in late in 1990. I think I was at the Kewanee seminar maybe a year later. Maybe it was cold when I was in Kewanee. Maybe winter of 91 or 92. And I was just, boy, it was the funnest thing ever, because I was very young, new in the industry, really, really wanted to learn, very eager to learn. Hollow metal was fascinating, the manufacturing process. And it was always, wake up, when you go to these seminars or classes, you can sleep in a little bit later. Because back then, I wasn't running my own business. I was working for someone. You can sleep in later. Then you have a class, like for an hour and a half, and then there's coffee. And then there's another hour, hour and a half, and then there's lunch. And then there's couple hours, and then everybody meets in the bar. So it was great, a great time. And the bar that we met in was in a historic hotel in downtown Kewanee, Illinois. Anyway, so I always go back and think of Kewanee because of how well I understood their product line when it was available. And they basically had 3 doors, and those 3 doors that Kewanee had represent the old-ish, not 1940s, but the oldish and kind of the newish stuff. And it's got everything to do with how the vertical face sheet and the style are joined, brought together. And that's the edge seam. And once you've got a seam, an edge seam, you can then do things to it. You'll have a seam. So that right on the inside, that's the seam, even though it's really not like that. Or that's the seam, the area between my fingertips, that's the seam. You can take that seam and you can fill it with Bondo and make it go away. It's aesthetically more pleasing. It is. You can take that seam and you can tack weld it every so many inches, and then you can grind that and then fill it with Bondo. I've even made doors where I've continuously welded that. And what I mean continuously welded, I don't mean I just ran a bead for 83 1/8 inches all the way around, because your door will be the world's heaviest banana. Start welding it, start welding it, start welding it, stop, cool it down, cool it down, cool it down. Has to be cooled down. And that sort of process, I can continuously weld something. Where there's a continuous weld, I'm not welding it continuously without interruption, because that heat will warp that thin gauge material. You can have a edge seam that's fully welded, and Amweld made a big investment into their laser edge, continuously welded edge seam, and that was going to be the new thing, the new hotness. That machine, I don't know the inside details, but that was a couple of years before they were out of business. That machine, from what I understood secondhand, was always really difficult to get running correctly, and was or was not part of no longer being a company. I know that they moved. I think what really happened is Clinton is president, NAFTA goes in, and then early 2000s, Amweld really has a lot of manufacturing out of Ohio and now in Mexico. And there's not a lot of money in hollow metal as far as I'm concerned, given the commodity type. It's big, it's heavy, it's very competitive. And now they're shipping it internationally back and forth. So none of it was really good. But the reason I mention Amweld is because they were trying to laser continuously weld the seam. But I was at the plant early 2000s, and they were making a door like the Seco Regent door, where there's literally a tab and slot situation. And they would have the lower pan and the upper pan. And each pan was L-shaped, and then L-shaped. But the upper pan was really folded over metal and then L-shaped. The bottom pan was really, it had a flange, but it had slots cut into it so that the upper part with the tabs hanging down would interlock into the slots. And they were literally taking the bottom pan and the top pan, and they were placing it on top, but they were offsetting it about an inch from the bottom. They would get it positioned correctly. And then they would literally take the door assembly and slam it against a hard stop. And that's the process that they were getting the tabs and slots to interlock. And that's literally how it was done. I thought, boy, hollow metal is not very glamorous. But that's one type of edge seam where there is just a seam and there's no treatment to it. The reason that people will want to treat that edge seam with either only Bondo, but more likely welding and Bondo, is because you either are looking for a stronger edge, those tabs and slots, steel rusts, and it fails. So they'll weld that, not continuously, but they'll spot weld it. Not spot weld it, but they'll weld it in spots, grind it, sand it, fill it with Bondo. That's the second reason. It's aesthetically more pleasing. It just is. It's a seamless door at that point. It's not a seamed door, it's a seamless door. A seamless door is an upgrade. If your specs call for a seamless door, you better be sure to pick that up or select a door design by your manufacturer that is a seamless door. So the LE laser edge by Amweld would have been a seamless door. Kewanee had their E door. That was the folded over edge. Think of tab and slot. I don't think it was tab and slot though. The other door they had was their D door. The D door was a beveled edge door and was welded on the edge. Not continuously, but it was welded on the edge. A super clean edge. Welded, ground, dressed, Bondo filled. Then, late 80s, they came out with the VMAX. Fun fact, the name of the VMAX door from Kewanee was the name of the boat that the owner, Fred Pippin, super great guy, that was the name of his boat. Super nice guy. I'm sure Fred's no longer with us because I haven't spoken to him in 20 years. And he was probably in his 70s the last time I saw him. I hope that he is with us. Great guy. The VMAX. So the VMAX was a square edge door and literally had a pan and then two steel channels. So you had a center seam door. Okay, I know Curry's has this door as well, but a center seam door. And then that was spot welded. Literally two diodes, if that's not diodes. I don't remember the term for the contact points on a spot welder, but this tool balanced spot welder would come out and they would just start hitting it all the way down the door. Tricky business, spot welding. Too much heat and you're going to burn through, leave a trace on the face of the door. You'll see it after it's finished painted. Not enough penetration and you're really not welding the material. So you could have taken that VMAX door and you could have welded it. You could have left it the way it was meant to be, or you could have welded it, grind the edge down, sand it, Bondo it. So that's the stuff about the edge seam. Let's switch to the screen view and let's take a closer look at the Seco catalog. I had my Kewanee, there were two binders from Kewanee, the catalog and then the technical manual. The technical manual was put together by, I don't remember his name, the engineer at Kewanee. He went to work for Mesker after Kewanee went out of business. Anyway, I really wish I had that manual because it was part of the Kewanee 3-day seminar. Was to Tom Field was his name. Tom Field. Rose Cliff started at Kewanee back in the 90s. She now is a person of substantial magnitude for Assa Abloy, either Seco or Curry's or just all of it. And she definitely cut her teeth working at Kewanee. And now she's just top of the top over there when it comes to hollow metal. So Tom Field created that technical manual, and I wish I had it just for archival purposes. So let's switch to the screen view and see if we can find some examples of what edge seam looks like. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, edge seam. The connection of the face sheet at the vertical edge is what they're talking about. All right, let's dive into what I said we would do. Let's start with Seco. And I believe the most common door in the world is the Seco Regent door. At least it seems that way to me. Only because when someone calls and they need a door because it's rusted from the inside out, it was a Seco Regent door. Part of the problem with it, and I learned this from, I don't remember the national sales manager's name from Kewanee in the 90s, but a legend. And then a gentleman came in and replaced him, who I think ended up at Pioneer for a stint, or maybe he still is when Kewanee went out of business, taught me about this. And he was telling me the rusting from the inside. He was telling me how when hollow metal doors are made and they use honeycomb core, which the Regent is a honeycomb core door, you know, they put that through a pinch roller. So they take the honeycomb structure and they kind of crush it down, kind of destroying the inherent strength of honeycomb. But the reason they have to crush it down is to give it a little more surface area for the glue to stick. Well, the problem with the glue to stick is that if the inside sheet of the door itself is primed, the glue won't stick. So the inside of the steel is literally unprotected raw steel. That's why it rusts from the inside. That national sales manager name, his first name was Jack Regan. Jack Regan was his name. And the guy that came in after him was Tom Barnard. I get the names eventually. Okay, so let's look at Seco Regent door. Nothing's changed. Yeah, well, here's a picture of the slots. The upper lid here is going to have the tabs. So they're going to put that into a whatever machine that's going to punch those tabs out and then kind of make them project down. Now, if you go back to me explaining how Amwell did it, you can kind of see. If you think about hanging a picture on the wall and you've got a keyhole prep in the back of the picture frame and you've got a nail in the wall, same sort of concept here. Nail sticks in here and then you slide it and it moves. So they were literally slamming that against. I don't know how Seco does it, but that's the edge. Mechanically interlocked. Hemmed vertical edge seams as shown, or center edge seam for added strength and rigidity. Now, I didn't know that they would do a center seam on a Regent door. Yeah, we're going to look in the price list to see if that's accurate. The Omega is the same door, but I think it's handed. The Regent is, well, wait a minute. What's the difference? The core? Oh, the Omega is non-handed. Okay, so that's going to be a square edge door. Well, they say square lock edge. If it's non-handed, then it's going to be square edge on both sides for sure. Then we go to the Legion Ultra door. Tabs and slots still, apparently. Let's scroll into the Imperial Versa door. I won't bother with that. I want to look at a different edge seam. Here is their medallion door. This is the heavy hitter. This is probably a center, well, maybe it's not. Fully welded edge seams enhance strength and appearance. I don't actually believe it's fully welded. They're saying that it is. I don't know that it actually is. But it is seamless. It's a seamless door. That's really important. You're going to see seamless. In a medallion door where it's steel stiffened, the logic with the steel stiffening is the door is going to take a substantial amount of abuse. If you've taken the upper pan and the lower pan and you've welded it down the edge, that's going to make for a stronger door. Let's take a look at the price list. I want to see what they offer in terms of edge seam treatment. Alright, so on the Regent stuff, seamless edges. So if you want to go to a seamless edge, edges welded, 18 or 16, there's your adder. Edges filled, that means Bondo. There you go. Let's take a look at the medallion for what they offer, if anything. They probably don't because its standard is seamless. Okay, apparently not. Seamless edges. Edges welded, handed only, and then edges filled. Now let's keep going. Seamless. All right, that's going to come up a number of times. Temperature rise doors, temperature rise doors. The Legion door. The Legion door is the one I like to use. It's a polystyrene core. It really does the job. So you're going to weld, not continuous. I doubt it's continuous. Or you're going to just fill with Bondo. When you weld, you're going to fill with Bondo. So it's always $89. If you want the extra welding, it's the difference between It's $54 for welding. Okay, let's now take a look at the most current technical manual. Okay, they've got a lot of matches for seamless. Well, so vertical edges. That's a center seam door. And this is on a Regent. Okay, there you go. So that'll be a square edge door, center seam. They'll weld that and then they'll fill it with Bondo. It's optional. We looked at the price adder for that earlier. And as we go through this, doors specified seamless, have no visible seams on faces or vertical edges. That's an SDI Model 2, and I'm going to show you that SDI document in a moment. Great view here on the Omega. So apparently the Omega, they're showing it mechanically interlocked here. You can mechanically interlock and call it a day. You could also go with the seamless welded or body filler only. You're always going to get body filler, Bondo. So this is called an edge seam door, just so that it's clear, an edge seam door. Seamless. The Imperial Maxim, yeah, that's going to be a seamless door. If you're ordering 14 gauge, you want something that's going to be extremely heavy duty. I don't know where the seam occurs on this. It could literally occur on an outside corner, although that doesn't make any sense at all. It's not clear here where it shows up. Continuous seam welded. So that word is different than what they used previously. Now they're saying on the Imperial Maxim it's continuous. Seamless design. Seamless. Versa doors. Seamless. Yeah, so I think you get the picture. So they mentioned Model 2. Let me show you where that's coming from. Standards. This will probably take a month for me to figure out. Yeah, maybe SDI 100. Standard in PDF. I'm looking for the charts. There we go. Perfect. So these are the different levels. The different models. So level 1 is 20 gauge. Level 2 is 18, then 16, then 14 gauge. So model, seamless. Okay, so full flush is that there are no visible seams on the surface of the faces. Full flush. That's code for you're going to have a seam on the edge of the door, unless you go out of your way to make it seamless. In addition to the requirements for full flush, no visible seams are permitted along the vertical edges. So there's your seamless. And that should be a Model 2. Door edges. Yeah, right here. So this is on page 2 of the document. I scrolled right past it. Model 2 is always going to be seamless. So if someone calls you, it's really common for someone to call me and say, I need a level 3 Model 2. A guy called today literally for a level 2 Model 1. And I'm thinking, okay, typical garden variety, 18 gauge, you know, a seamed edge door. But if someone says level 3 Model 2, 16 gauge, seamless. Okay, you're going to be looking at your Maxim, possibly, depending on the core. And that's how you find that information. Level 4, I think, might be that Imperial Maxim that they have there. But this SDI 100 is really, of all of the SDI documents, this is the one that I go to because it's the one that's most referred to in my experience, limited as it is when it comes to contract-based bid work. But this is a super handy document. You're always going to want to get to steeldoor.org, get up here to standards. And if you attend something like that Kiwani seminar I mentioned, you're going to end up with this stuff in your go-home binder is the bottom line. So that's where you want to be. Okay. All right. So one final thing to just kind of show you. These edges are going to be kind of like this. I think, yeah, it's going to be more like this. Okay. That's your edge seam door. Your center seam door, like that Kiwani VMAX, is going to be like this. Okay. That D-Series door was a real monster. Great door. Very heavy reinforcements. It's going to be like this. And that was being filled in all the time. Now, it's really important if you're doing shop prep to know what you're dealing with in the sense of what door edge are you dealing with. Amweld, I believe Amweld actually, used to make a door like this. This and this, when the door is made, look identical to you. However, this tail causes quite the tail. Let's take a look. when you're doing a prep, let's say you're adding a deadbolt, you're going to curse the fact that it's Friday, and now you're trying to install a deadbolt with mounting tabs, and you didn't realize that it was that double pan style. Here we go. So this split tail, that's the one that you need for this sucker. You try to use a standard tab like this, or a typical Adams Wright tab that will come with an electric strike. On this, it's just not going to work because you can't get inside of there and grind that tail back. So you're going to want to find out what your door is prepped for before you order tabs. If you're dealing with that stuff, you're going to want these LMBO ones because you will run into them. Split version, the ones that are more like the VMAX. There you go. Okay, the next definition on our tour, elevation. That's what the door looks like. There are 3 perspectives on drawings: elevation, plan view, and right side view. Elevation is as if you're in your car driving past the house, what you would see in elevation. Let's go on to that definition. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.